righty. Dirty Sports Podcast, episode 619.
619, 619. San Diego, right?
Yeah, we are live in 5, 4, 3. Welcome to the Dirty Sports Podcast. I am your host, Andy Ruther, coming to you live from the Smut Studio in Venice Beach, California, with my co-host, Joey No Chill Prano.
Hello, Andy.
Or is it Karen?
I thought you might give me the Pippin to your Jordan, my co-host, because I think that's a nice. It's like a nice. I'd be honored to be the Pippin to your Jordan.
It's funny that you say
I'd be like, let's, Andy's the host. I just do literally all the work, and you get the accolades.
Unbelievable. It's funny you say that because I had a 3 or 4 hour Zoom session with college buddies.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, the discussion began how
After the Zoom?
Yeah, like my other buddy.
Via text?
Yeah, I mean, it just wouldn't stop. My buddy called me, and we were having discussions because we're going to have a big reunion.
A Zoom reunion?
No, an actual in-person reunion.
A resumion?
Yeah.
Okay, a real reunion in Cincy?
In St. Louis.
Okay.
And we were
Is this like an actual reunion, like your 10-year college reunion or some shit like that?
just a bunch of buddies getting together in like July or August.
Okay.
And I was debating who each of us is from The Last Dance. Because there's 6 of us.
Okay.
And my buddy's like, oh, you got to come prepared. We'll have a whole discussion at my pool. Debate.
Is there a very clear Jordan?
No.
No.
I mean, I'd argue like if we're talking, because we're mostly
Are you Bill Wennington?
No, we're talking mostly the shenanigan. Like if it comes to, if we're gonna say like the wild out of control guy, I'd be close to Jordan. So would my own buddy too. But then I could also be a Rodman.
But then like, is the out of control guy the most out of control is the GOAT, so therefore they're Jordan, but Rodman obviously out of control. I mean, were we doing The Last Dance first? I figured that would get saved. I figured we'd start with the draft first. And then you tried to start with some Karen stuff.
Well,
we were just talking Karens before the show.
Well, you were explaining some Karen stuff to me.
Well, because I saw this going around that the Karens are upset that they're being called Karens. Somebody even posted like a meme or like a graphic saying that Karens were calling like white women Karens is like calling black people the N-word, which is just
somebody didn't post that.
I swear it's going around. It's a big and it's like a huge thing. And then now there's this like growing anti-Karen movement. And I tweeted this morning, is there anything that's more Karen than the Karens being upset that they're called Karen? Like that's just peak Karenness right there. Like getting offended by something that's not offensive at all and being like, I need to speak to the manager of the internet. You got to stop referring to us all by the same white lady name. And then you and I started talking about, you said you don't know if you've ever slept with a Karen. And I said I for sure haven't, at least not that I recall. And I said that's kind of like the last generation's like Ruth or Mildred or like Beatrice, like all these names that like grandmas used to have. Karen's like one generation or a half a generation above us. It's the 40 to 50-year-olds that are like speaking to the manager. I don't know a lot of not a lot of Karens and Susans in my life.
I want to say I've slept with a Karen though. I don't know. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Yeah, let's go with my phone contacts. What? Oh, I turned my phone off. I'm gonna turn it back on. I wonder what Karens I have.
I don't even. I bet.
Look at your phone. See if you have any Karens in there.
I bet you I don't.
Like, did you know any cute Karens growing up?
I have a Karen, and I used to teach surf lessons, right? And it's the mom of the guy who owns the surf company. She's like in her 60s. Every once in a while, I had to call Karen because I had to return wetsuits to her backyard. Yeah, it's like a lady in her 60s is the only Karen in my phone.
I will say
maybe 50s.
the woman who used to.
She's a splendid lady. She doesn't seem like the speak. She might be a speak to the manager type. Now that I'm thinking about it, she has like a Santa Monica.
I feel like the Karens who spell it with an I are not as bad as the with an E.
I mean, I feel like it's worse.
You
I feel like
do?
now you're not even just embracing your Karenness. You're trying to like get funky with your Karen. It's like spelling Ruth with 2 O's.
I don't have any. I don't have any Karens in my phone.
I'm telling you, it's a generation before us.
Let me see. I'm just putting Tinder into my phone. Dude, look at this. Look at this.
Well, I mean, their names aren't Tinder. You've just named them all that. Isn't that confusing?
Look at this.
You must have multiple like Kelly Tinders, right?
No, I have. As far as K's, I have Katie, Kaylee, and Kristen from Tinder.
Yeah. Like I feel like the Katies, the Jennies, the Kellys, that's going to be our generation's Karens.
Let me see. Let me.
You're going to be like, enough, Jenny.
That's my goal now to remember if I hooked up with a Karen.
I think your goal should be to hook up with a Karen. What else do you have to do? I think you should do. This should be like a
Science project?
not even a. This should be like something that you blog about. Like you should try to sleep with as many Karens as possible. write an article about it and like send it to like Betches or something. You know, like write a blog post about like I slept with 10 Karens and here's what I found.
They're all white girls though.
Can you imagine?
There's no like Latina or black girl
No.
name.
No,
Karen.
no. Like Karina.
Who's a famous Karen?
I mean, I'm sure there's a famous Karen.
I mean, we're down this rabbit hole. I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put in famous Karens in my computer.
Famous Karen.
I mean, who's a famous Karen? Oh, that's bad.
Who are the famous Karens?
Number one on famousbirthdays.com is Karen Gillian, an actress.
Yeah. Famous birthdays of some millennial shit. But there's got to be.
Bro,
Don't name your kid Karen if you want them to become famous.
I mean, there's not, dude. There's not many. There's no. It's yeah. Just don't do it. I kind of like your idea though. The problem, it'd be difficult to find Karens though on the dating apps. I like
Just like go to Facebook and search Karen, find mutual friends, people in Los Angeles. I mean, this is a great article. I slept with 10 Karens and here's what I found. This is a phenomenal. I want a piece of this. If I help you organize this, can I have 15%?
sure.
I'll help you find Karens.
It seems like a lot of work.
I mean, I'll help you write the thing too. Like we can co-write it. You'll just have to be the, our petri dish.
It's a lot of work, man.
It's fun work though. What else do you have to do? You're quarantined. I quarantined with 10 Karens. Let me speak to your manager. Sleeping with 10 Karens in 10 days. It's a great article.
But it doesn't sound fun because
I honestly think it could be a documentary. This could be a Netflix.
when you think Karen, you don't think, hey,
Sleeping with the Karens? Is this like sleeping with the enemy?
these are the type of girls that aren't going to be pleasurable in bed, though.
Also, this is definitely a documentary. The conversations about you talking to Karens about being named Karen in the age of Karens. You could start with my friend who's a surf instructor's mom. She lives in Santa Monica.
You said she's 60.
I mean, I'm saying we got to find Karens here. Let's start where we start.
I did go to grade school with a Karen.
If anybody knows Karens in the greater Los Angeles area, please email us at 30sports.com.
The woman who used to run this building was a Karen. She was the meanest person ever.
She would always try to speak to the manager, and she was the manager.
Dude, she was a total bitch.
Yeah. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point.
Yeah. Don't name your kid Karen.
Yeah. I love this. The Karen episode.
Dude, I just it's again a lot of work. I might not have much going on. In fact, maybe Karen can get my sleep schedule normal. It's out of control.
I love it.
Going to bed at 5 a.m.
Well, what did you do last night? Like, were you up watching TV?
Yeah, well, I watched.
Is it true that now that Bilbo's gone, you have taken to staying up till 5 in the morning, sleeping on the couch?
Except I exercise and don't sleep for 12 hours.
At any point before going to bed at 4 a.m., did you eat a cheese stick?
No.
Because there could be some, like, weird Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, that you have become Bilbo.
So I watched The Last Dance, and then I went for like a run. And these are like 8-mile runs, so they take a minute. And then I got home, and I showered. I read my book. I did some writing. Yeah, and then I stare. Okay, this is gonna sound crazy. I want to do, and we're not going to do it now, but I want to do an episode where we talk about things we've learned about ourselves in quarantine, because I think that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
I've just learned I don't binge. I don't care about TV and movies to like binge, or I shouldn't say that, to watch daily. So I'll find myself just sitting in here. I know this sounds, people are gonna be like, Ruther's a serial killer. I'll find myself sometimes just like thinking, sitting on the couch, nothing on, just thinking about life.
That is pretty serial killery. Speaking of which, great transition into I started Mindhunter on Thursday evening and finished it yesterday morning.
See, that's what I'm saying.
2 seasons of Mindhunter, basically 2 days. Friday, Saturday. Yeah, basically 2 days.
I mean, to put it in context, I started watching Bond movies.
You got 3 in and then you stopped?
No, I finished the Sean Connery last night, so I think I'm 6 or 7 in. But my point is, I'm 6 or 7 in 2 weeks later.
I told you too. Like you got to be mixing. Like every time you go to the TV, you can't be watching. It's just too similar. It's just too much of the same thing over and over again.
No, I watched.
You got to mix in some other stuff.
Okay, so Friday night I actually got really, really baked. Like you saw what happened to DiGiorno Pizza.
Yeah. How did that even happen? Seems like you pulled it a little early. First of all.
So it said 18 to 21 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was at 20, and I could tell it still looked undercooked, but I was so hungry I had the munchies, and then it got stuck to the middle tray, and I took it out, and I couldn't get it. I had my spatula, and I was trying to dude, it was a mess. I ate the whole thing.
Yeah. It's still pizza.
I thought of you. I was like, Prano, it's still pizza.
Yeah, it's still pizza.
And then I watched.
Put it into a bowl and dice it. It's still pizza.
I watched that new Hemsworth movie.
Is that like the Extinctor or whatever?
Extraction.
The Extraction, right. How was that? I've heard terrible things.
I mean, look, dude, when you're an edible and like a joint deep, whatever, a lot of action.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I watched The Last Dance. I watched that Beastie Boys documentary, which is on Apple TV. And I watched 2 full seasons of Mindhunter, which was great. First season was really good. Second season fell off a little bit. Supposedly it's like they don't know whether or not it'll come back, which is like, God damn it, I wish I had looked into that before I started watching it.
Well, I looked into it after you told me to watch it, and then I realized it's an actual scripted show.
Yeah.
I was hoping.
I wasn't sure forever. I had heard people talk about it. I was like, oh, is it and then when I realized it was a scripted show, I was like, huh, interesting. I give it a shot. I really liked it. I especially really liked the first season.
And then I watched the Black Mirror movie where you get to pick and choose what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Bandersnatch. I watched that. And again, it wasn't that good.
When you're sleeping with these Karens, be careful of their Bandersnatch.
Oh,
Should we talk about the NFL draft, Andy? That was this weekend.
You're really just saving this Last Dance thing, huh?
Well, I feel like the draft is more like breaking news. We've already done the last. We did the first 2 episodes of The Last Dance for basically a whole episode last week. I feel like the draft is more like sportsy news. I think we start with the NFL. We close with The Last Dance.
Let's do it.
Even though, well, yeah. So let's do it. Do you have what's your biggest takeaway from the NFL draft? What's your like number one draft storyline? I wrote down a lot of draft storylines.
Well, one is, again, NFL, I keep saying it, NFL is king. We knew that, but still hasn't missed a beat. Broke ratings records. All 3 days, the ratings were higher than they've ever been. And,
That's how desperate people are for sports stuff right now.
oh, yeah.
I said, and a lot of people that I've just talked to personally were like, what? No, why? There's no reason not to do this every year like this. There's no reason we need to have a live draft. There's none.
I disagree.
Have you ever gone?
No, but it's turned into such an event.
For who?
The people that go, I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, no, we're not. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands of people don't go to the NFL draft. Honestly,
Do you remember, what is it, Main Street or Broadway in Nashville last year?
but that's not people that were necessarily just there for the draft. There's a draft party, and then people are going out for it. People in Nashville are like, oh, well, this is happening. I'll turn up.
But that's my point. It gets a lot more people out.
But so what? So who are we? This is for what? Nashville's tourism. Literally, the people that go to the draft, that like buy tickets to the draft, and like I said, it's 24
Jets
Eagles
fans.
and Jets fans that are there to boo their draft pick. Then we got Roger Goodell hugging a bunch of guys that 3 years later you're gonna be like, we don't know you shit. CTE's not real. Get the fuck out of here. Like, the thing is that the NFL is behind a lot of other leagues in terms of their like social awareness. The fact that they proved this, that they can do it this way, it almost seems like it's a no-brainer to just go, why have like the environmental footprint of flying like ESPN crew, staff,
You're bringing up environmental footprint.
I'm just talking about,
like the NFL cares.
I'm saying the NFL doesn't care. But you can get an easy win here and say, we're not going to fly 12 executives from every team, all the ESPN staff and crew, all the NFL crew, all of the players that are going to be drafted in the first round. For what? For what? For a photograph of them shaking Goodell's hand? It just seemed like it barely missed a beat with this. So to me, there's just no reason you have to do it. And the fanfare of it all is like, you've never gone. I've never gone. We were going to go this year because it was in Vegas, because we were like, oh, it's basically just an excuse to go to Vegas. But, like, I've never in my life once outside of Vegas said, let's go to the NFL draft.
Well,
ever.
I do.
And it was in New York for years.
I do like how they show the homes, and we got a lot of great content.
That was the other thing. The homes of the players, the homes
girlfriends.
of the coaches, the homes. It was. I thought that there was a ton of content that went into like the social media push of the draft because it was at home.
The Vrabel family, obviously.
The Vrabel family, Cliff Kingsbury's home setup. Cliff Kingsbury, like, he bought a country club in Arizona, and he's watching the draft alone with no socks on, just Kingsburying it up. If you zoom in on that Cliff Kingsbury picture, he has an outdoor day bed that has 700 pillows on it. I mean, is Cliff Kingsbury's wife a Karen? Is there a Karen Kingsbury?
No, he's not married. He was.
His mom must be a Karen because he has 700 pillows on his day bed.
I did like Inside the Homes, and obviously there was a lot of controversy. I don't know why ESPN would post mom was a drug addict for 16 years.
I mean, that was the basically the main story. I've never seen anything as aggressive as ESPN this year during the draft, finding the worst thing that ever happened to somebody and making it a must mention. Everybody like, and then his brother died, and I mean they would go loose. They'd be like, his uncle's second wife was killed in a violent plane crash. You're like, did he even know her? His dad once dated a Karen. Like, Jesus.
Dude,
this
they listed that one of the players' mom was a drug addict and was battling addiction. Why are you airing out the family business?
I know. And they put it on the screen.
On the screen.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like an ESPN. That's where ESPN has to take a huge L. It's like,
Well, they did.
how many people made the same joke on the internet? It's like, why are you bringing up the worst thing that ever happened to all these people? Like, every guy.
Every guy.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get it.
I said, if you like, signs that you're going to be like a top NFL draft pick. Your dad died when you were a child in some sort of violent crime, and the only thing he left you in the will was a black leather love seat where you will pile your entire family on to watch the NFL draft, to watch you get drafted.
And Roger Goodell was stumbling.
Stumbling, mumbling, tumbling.
Yeah, he was struggling.
He went from standing up in a suit to like leaning on some shit in a sweater. Fifth round, he was like laying on the floor in a Snuggie.
But even first round, I posted that clip
where he didn't know what year it was, and he didn't know
what
where
city.
Yeah,
that was like mid first round.
I was like, get the guy an earpiece.
What is happening here?
Yeah, I honestly, I just don't. I thought it was more. Obviously, we're sports starved. I watched more of this draft than I've ever watched a draft. I thought it was interesting to see all these guys at home, to see them all with their family, to see the coaches at home. Bill Belichick's dog was running the draft at one point. Bill Belichick's dog was like monitoring the Patriots draft picks. Bill Belichick is the head coach and GM of the Patriots. At one point, their war room was an empty kitchen with a dog in the chair. You can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
By the way, the Packers should hire that dog because the Packers fucking hate Aaron Rodgers. What is going on? That's definitely one of my top headlines.
Well, who's the backup for the Packers right now?
I don't know.
So neither of us know.
They had somebody last. I mean, did they get? Was it like Deshaun Kaiser last year or something like that? They signed somebody last year after starting Hundley a couple of years ago. But this isn't a backup situation, right? This is. I mean, they took a guy in the first round. If you wanted to, you could sign a guy to be the backup.
I mean, look, dude.
Go get Joe Flacco. Go get,
You're still big on Aaron Rodgers. He fell off a lot last year.
He was 13-3. They made the NFC Championship game.
His team was 13-3.
Okay.
I'm just saying, his team got waxed twice by the 49ers. Like, he fell off a lot last year. He did.
I'll say it again. The one thing is just judging quarterbacks. People are like, oh, QB wins isn't a stat, and quarterbacks, and like, you still have to look at the fact that the Packers have this disarray. Everybody's saying Aaron Rodgers hates McCarthy. They get rid of McCarthy. They bring in a brand new head coach. Everybody goes first year. They always say it takes a half a season under a new offensive system. They went 13-3 and went to the NFC Championship game, which begs the question, okay, they get waxed by the 49ers. They're one team away from the Super Bowl. So do you try to adjust your team to beat that 49ers team, or are you giving up? Like, it just seems like the Packers might be punting on the Aaron Rodgers era.
Well, I just think that, one, they, in my recent memory, were one of the worst 13-3 teams that I can recall.
I mean, you are Mr. You have pulled the Bill Parcells, you are your record quote on this show numerous times.
I have, but that doesn't mean that you still can't be. That division to me is a weak division compared to some of the other ones. I'm not saying punt on Aaron Rodgers, and obviously he's the starter.
In the 15 years, again, since they drafted Aaron Rodgers, they haven't drafted a skill position offensive player in the first round. It just seems to me like if you're 13-3, whether you're a strong 13-3, whether you're a weak 13-3, you're one game away from the Super Bowl. You should be able to adjust your team in 3 to 4 facets and compete again for a Super Bowl. And it just seems like wasting your first-round pick on the only position on the field that you're pretty much set at. Not to mention in the second round, they go out and they get a running back. Running back and quarterback were great for them.
They need a wide receiver.
They've refused to draft one.
Yeah.
And they're trading up to get this quarterback.
Sure.
Why don't you trade up to get all these receivers that fell? I mean, Judy falls, Lamb falls. Like, these guys are, because the Raiders do another classic Raiders storyline, because the Raiders had to have the fastest receiver in the draft.
Why do the Raiders love speed so much?
Al Davis will
his ghost.
His finger comes out of the ground like Tales from the Crypt and just points at the guy with the highest 40 time. Like, he pulls it. You see the chain sunglasses coming out. He's like, rugs. Give me rugs. It's like, old bowl cut Davis getting visited by his dead father at the side of his bed in the middle of the night. You must take the fastest receiver.
So
this is something they've done for 30 years. They're like, if you were a former track star, we will draft you.
James Jett.
Yeah.
So the Packers' backup was Tim Boyle last year.
Okay.
Whoever that is.
Right.
Look, I don't fully understand it either. I'm not saying.
But it seems to me that they didn't draft this guy to be the backup. They drafted him to be the future. Correct? And you drafted Rodgers. Everybody was talking about how they drafted this guy at the same age that Rodgers is as they drafted Favre. Do we not remember that was a debacle? That was a debacle. They tried to push Favre out. He didn't want to leave. He stayed. He's retiring. He's unretiring every training camp. Is he coming back? Is he not coming back? Finally, he leaves. Then he goes to the Jets. Then he comes back, and he haunts them with another team. Like, it was a shit show. They wanted Favre out of there before Rodgers. Before he was out of there. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, to point to that as the situation.
Oh, yeah. This is a highly combustible situation. And I think Aaron Rodgers is very sensitive, as we've seen. He's had a lot of problems with coaches, his family. I do not think this goes well. I agree.
Yeah. And the other thing is, and I don't mind, by the way, if you honestly look at your team, if you're the GM or you're LaFleur, and you guys have decided we were a week 13-3, this team doesn't have a chance to win with Aaron Rodgers, we should be planning for the future. Okay, there are people that want Aaron Rodgers if you make him available. I understand that he has a huge cap number. I understand, but, there are people that will make it work. You think Bill Belichick's just sitting over there going, don't give me Aaron Rodgers? He will figure out a way to make it work if you're saying that Aaron Rodgers is available. But it seems like they're fence sitting here, that they're doing neither, that they're neither giving up and going we're not as good as our record is. This is a build for the future. But they're also not going, let's give Aaron Rodgers one last shot here in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, obviously, they won the division last year. And again, I would argue it's still their division to lose, because the Bears are, I don't know what's happening.
Nick Foles, and they have a Nick Foles, Mitchell Trubisky situation.
Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, and then you have Detroit going to Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't fully understand. Obviously, a lot of people were surprised, especially to trade up for that pick.
The other quarterback headline, of course, is Jalen Hurts in the second round of the Eagles, which is only kind of fun and funny because, Eagles fans can't face the reality. They're trying to convince themselves this is some sort of Taysom Hill Jalen Hurts is going to come in and run all these weird packages situation, or that I mean, I have Eagles fans that I'm literally on a group text with that are like, this is trade bait. I'm like, you don't draft a guy in the second round to trade him later on in the draft. That's not how that shit works. They clearly got a guy as a security blanket for a quarterback who's always hurt. And it wasn't a terrible decision, but at the same time, the Eagles a reckless draft, if you ask me. They go small, speedy receiver again. They go Goodwin. They trade to get Goodwin from the Niners. They go Jalen Hurts. They're just trying to put together a receiving core of Deshaun Jacksons, and they're going to have a Wentz Hurts, by the way, which is just hilarious to think of. That's how their depth chart reads. Wentz Hurts. It's like a headline. It's like Tracy Morgan wrote a Philadelphia headline. Wentz Hurts. So yeah, that was a hilarious storyline for me.
Jalen Hurts is interesting. You don't watch much college football. I obviously got to see him play a lot this year for Oklahoma, and when he was at Bama, he didn't have the passing skills, and he was more of a runner. And as far as the development at the position, but then under Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, as he's done with so many other guys, he really flourished this year. I mean, he came second in the Heisman voting, and I thought he's a nice little sleeper. He comes from big programs, but he battled a lot of adversity, which I like. Right? He gets demoted for Tua. He sits the whole year. Then he has to come back when Tua gets injured in the SEC championship, not this year, but the year before last, right? He leads Alabama to the win over Georgia in the SEC championship. He transfers to Oklahoma. He's battled a lot, which I like. I actually don't hate it. It is proof that no matter what anybody thinks about Carson Wentz as far as the contract, especially that he just got a big contract, the Eagles front office is clearly worried about his health.
I mean, that's the thing. And that's why, to me, it's not as crazy as a draft pick as you'd think, but it still is. But if you're an Eagles fan, don't convince yourself that the Eagles spent a second rounder on a guy that they're going to come in and try to run, the Wildcat with. This is a clear and obvious, we need a security plan for if Wentz gets hurt.
Yeah, we can't have 43-year-old, what's his name, who played in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Who gives us zero chance.
Yeah. So,
McCown.
I mean, it is still hilarious, though. It's just as a Giants fan, I'm like, yes, do that. This is good.
Yeah.
So here's a couple of other headlines. I mean, speaking of my Giants, the Giants go O-line heavy, tons of O-linemen, including Andrew Thomas from Georgia. Of all the tackles, I mean, I was begging that if they didn't trade back, they took one of these tackles. And I actually thought that the number of great offensive tackles in the draft were so high that I thought for sure they would draft back and just take whichever one was available to them wherever they drafted back. Supposedly they tried to, and it didn't really work. So they ended up taking Andrew Thomas, which I don't watch a lot of college football. I did my briefings. I thought Wirfs was going to be the guy that goes to them if they had to sit at four, but they take Thomas. But they go heavy O-line across the board, and they take McKinney from Alabama in the early second round as a safety. And so I like the Giants draft. Just give me all the O-linemen. Give me them all. What the Giants did is they made up for the 4 straight years where they randomly ignored the fact that their offensive line sucked, and they took 7 offensive linemen in this draft, and I'm okay with it. Herbert, as I said on our show pre-draft, goes to your LA Chargers, stays on the West Coast, little Oregon boy, coming to the Chargers, big arm. They're going to make him grow a beard. They're going to give him Fouts' number. They're going to change his name to Justin Fouts. Are you excited about this?
Sure.
As far as
I think they did draft pretty well, I felt.
Yeah, they got the linebacker
Murray
from Oklahoma as well.
And then they got local kid from UCLA, Josh Kelly at running back.
Oh, look
Uh,
at you! Did you get an email from the Chargers?
oh, they said they emailed me nonstop. I like, and even the seventh round, the KJ Hill pick from Ohio State. The Chargers, dude, I get 3 emails a day from the Chargers.
That's amazing.
Dude, they are so desperate. So the Chargers set up like some virtual draft party for season ticket holders. I'm telling you, I think if I stick with season tickets, I think by the end of this football season, we'll have a dirty sports box suite.
Great. I'm honestly like excited that you have Chargers tickets because like obviously I'll get involved in this. I'll go to some Chargers games with you.
I got 2 tickets.
Yeah. I don't watch enough college football to like have a really strong opinion on Herbert, but I do like the pick from them there. They need a quarterback. They get the big arm West Coast kid. I feel like whether he is a great NFL quarterback or not, I feel like he has a style of play that they can build a culture around. Like, let's let it fly. Like, let's chuck the ball downfield.
Well, they got cool uniforms.
They have great uniforms.
It's a start.
Yeah. I liked, and I texted you about it, Simmons, who a lot of people were talking about the Giants maybe taking defense at 4, goes to Arizona. The Arizona Cardinals are going to be a problem, and they're going to be a problem, like, relatively soon. They just keep adding guys who are, like, very versatile. I feel like they're going, like, new school NFL style. I don't know that this necessarily translates into winning a Super Bowl, but they're going to be sneaky. They're going to beat some NFC West teams next year in some games in Arizona. I mean, they draft a guy who's played basically every position on defense besides the defensive line. They're going with the high-powered offense. They get Hopkins. I like that pick from Arizona.
Their coach is dressed like
Their coach, yeah.
is about to go to a nightclub in
Yeah,
Scottsdale.
he's just waiting for the call from the VIP host saying that the table's ready and the Red Bulls and vodka have been poured, and then he will take his golf cart to the club. The 2 wide receiver picks that fell, like I said, I think Judy to the Broncos and Lamb to the Cowboys, both great gets for those teams, especially Lamb to the Cowboys. I know Tug was bonering out over that. How many weapons Dak has, and they'll still miss the playoffs next year while he puts up the greatest number? Like, we're going to have a real Kirk Cousins situation on our hands where they just keep franchising him for the next decade, and he somehow makes $300 million without ever getting a contract and without ever making the playoffs. It's going to be fun.
I like the pick of J.K. Dobbins for the Ravens because they already have Mark Ingram. They already have all those fast receivers and, of course, Lamar Jackson. I think now you have a 1-2 punch. J.K. Dobbins is fast as shit, and he's really good.
Yeah.
And it just, like, Ohio State guys are good in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like obviously the SEC gets the headlines, deservingly so, because they had that many draft picks. But, I mean, did you see the stat? The first 3 picks, if at one point played for Ohio State.
Right.
Obviously, including Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
But my point is, those guys, for the most part, I would say, Ohio State guys, for the most part, are good in the NFL on all positions.
I feel like for sure good. Like, that's the thing is, like, you don't hear about a ton of the busts
Exactly.
from there. And some of the guys over the years who, like, there have been guys over the years who you're like, he went to Ohio State, and then you have other guys you're like, okay, he was supposed to be great, but he ends up just being like a contributor. But honestly, when you draft a guy in the NFL draft, if he becomes a contributing member of your team for 5 to 6 years, like, I don't care if he was the 2nd overall pick, that's a win.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the business in the NFL. It's like some guys can't hack it. No one except quarterbacks essentially plays 10 years.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, we talked about it, like the fact that Michael Thomas, that Ohio State guy, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I barely remember that. I thought the Colts drafted really well. They get Pittman from SC, and then Jonathan Taylor, the running back from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Who behind their offensive line will be great. And then, of course, they go and get Eason, I believe in the 3rd round, right?
Yeah.
And so it's now, I don't know where the QB depth chart breaks down, but we've got Rivers,
What?
Eason, and Jacoby Brishgoli.
Why don't you just tag Tug next time in your tweet?
What? Why? I'm not. Just because Tug, you know, thought extending Jacoby Brishgoli.
Joe, we call that a subtweet.
Oh, is that what we call it?
That's a subtweet.
I mean, just because Tug thought giving him $30 million when he was under contract for absolutely no reason, when they were clearly in the market for a quarterback and didn't believe in him, was a great move. So now the third quarterback on the Colts is the 19th highest paid quarterback in football. Is that still good value?
I'm gonna say it right now. I think the Colts win the division.
Now that they have a quarterback?
Early prediction. Well, not just that. Like you said, they drafted well. I love Jonathan Taylor. He was amazing at Wisconsin. And you're right, behind that offensive line. And then Texans are a fiasco right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And I like the Titans. I like Mike Vrabel, but I see like a hangover.
Sure. I could see that too. Dude, I mean, you're talking to a guy who believed that the Colts with Andrew Luck last year were a contender and then predicted that they would win 6 games when they didn't have a quarterback. So I am and I am not a super Phillip Rivers stan by any means. In fact, I think that the Colts, as I said last year, even if they're, obviously my big push was go get Eli Manning right now. He's available. Phillip Rivers not available at the time. But my point being, even if you wanted a guy like Rivers, a.k.a. Manning, whoever, it should have been last year. So, like, there's one more year of wear on the Phillip Rivers tires. But the idea that he's there for 2 years and then you have Eason, like, I think the Colts are building to be the team in the AFC South for a couple years to come.
Yeah.
The Jaguars, who were bad last year, I thought did draft pretty well. They had 2 first-round picks, and they go all defense. They're trying to get back to playing the defense that got them to the AFC Championship game a couple years ago. I liked their first-round picks. We already talked about the Crypt Keeper coming back from the dead to pick the fastest running back. And I think the other headlines that we have, the Bucs get worse, who I thought the Giants might take it forward. Nice big offensive line from Iowa to help protect a Crypt Keeper himself and Tom Brady. And then the last one is the Patriots do not take a quarterback in the whole draft. I thought that was interesting. I know that they've got
Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, the guy that they believe is. They did take a white supremacist kicker, which was interesting.
Allegedly.
He didn't have a swastika tattooed on him, but he basically did.
Did he?
I mean,
did he? No, I'm being serious. Did he?
I mean, if you read, I mean, do you read the idea that he was confused about what that means? It's like, are you getting tattoos that you're confused about?
What does the tattoo mean? Because when I see things from Jamel Hill, who wants to,
I didn't even read the Jamel Hill thing, but like
she cries racism in every drop of the hat.
Sure,
so
of course she does.
I just tune those things out.
And Jamel Hill also says that that he got the tattoo put on him by Donald Trump, who was the tattoo artist for the day because he was drinking bleach or something. Like, trust me, I'm not. I believe. And this is why I consider myself a very middle-of-the-road, nonpartisan. I believe I have both Jameel Hill and Donald Trump blocked on Twitter. So I don't see any of that shit.
So what's a 3%er?
It's basically a white supremacist group. They're like, oh, we believe in, the Second Amendment and gun rights and whatever. But it's like one of those. It's like saying, oh, I believe, in pro-choice, so I'm in Antifa. It's like, we know what you guys are really about. And also, again, you got it tattooed on you. We're not talking about like he liked their Facebook page.
I know, but I would have to read more up on it. I'll be honest.
Also, who cares? He's the kicker for the Patriots. I'm just saying, it's not really super surprising. I don't think Bill Belichick knew what the tattoo meant before he drafted him.
I'm sensitive to people who just want to label stuff like racist or.
Well, let me ask you a question. It's not a matter of like I think if you're tattooing something on your body, like you wouldn't get this tattooed on your body these days, right? Like you wouldn't get like this is just when I grew up. This was just like okay, good job. I also remember like NBA players doing this as like they
They,
shot a three.
they still do.
Okay, so I'm saying,
That
but
doesn't mean white power.
but but would you get this tattooed on you?
Well, I wouldn't get any tattoo.
My point is, even if I shot a lot of threes in the NBA, I wouldn't get that tattooed on me these days for fear of being called a white supremacist.
I know, but I again, you see so much shit out there, and I mean that's why, like for me, it's just like social media is just so bad. Like I read I briefly perused, I should say, a whole tweet thread on this guy, and it's like one of the things is, oh my god, he attended a Jordan Peterson seminar. And this guy's like, well, Jordan Peterson. It's like, dude, you don't know shit about Jordan Peterson. Read his fucking books. Like, he's not a white supremacist at all. Like people just want to say stuff because it's attention grabbing, and they just want to make blanket statements. And I hate that. That's what I hate the most of like the age we live in. So, like for me, I want to do research on something, if that makes sense. I'm not saying what you're saying isn't true, but
I'm not saying. By the way, I'm saying the Jordan Peterson neither here nor there. But it's like, again, where there's smoke, there's fire. Like
sometimes.
Usually, that's where the phrase comes from.
No, I know, but I'm saying when certain people, again, like a Jamel Hill,
It's not like I don't think anybody's going. He went to a Jordan Peterson thing. He's a white supremacist. I think they're going like he has a 3% tattoo, and he's got the high and tight fucking Richard whatever side part haircut, and he went to a Jordan Peterson thing. It's like you're adding all these things together.
my thing is a lot of these people, again, who make blanket statements like her, I would love to talk. Like, I feel like I could pick her argument apart because it's all just based.
Well, that's why I block the people like on Twitter. Like I never need to hear from Jamil Hill. I never need to hear from Sean King. I never need to hear from Donald Trump. I never need to like if this is something that gets shared to me all the time and I just go, well, I don't care. I never need to hear Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless, yeah, blocked. So all the time I'll see tweets of people quote tweeting something and then it says unavailable to me because I'm like, I've blocked that or they've blocked me.
Can I say one last thing about the draft?
Sure.
About my hometown team. It's really disappointing that Joe Burrow is just allowing himself to be drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, I'm being serious. It really
He seemed
is.
excited about it though.
But it's sad.
You think he should have gone the Elway Eli route?
Yes, 100%. And it's even more sad to see somebody like Mel Kiper Jr. defending the Cincinnati Bengals. Did you see this clip?
Dude, I mean, Mel Kiper Jr. is on the list of people that I just mentioned.
But he is.
Mel Kiper Jr. was sitting in front of a green screen. He had like, did you see the background Mel Kiper Jr. was working with? Where is Mel Kiper that he couldn't have his natural background? That's what I want to know. Is that some sort of like, is there some sort of like Silence of the Lambs type of like, torture chamber that's happening behind him? Why is Mel Kiper have some weird green screen that has a Notre Dame football on a stand, a fake picture of like the Brooklyn Bridge on the wall, a bunch of like it was a fake computer screen with just the ESPN logo on it. It was the weirdest thing ever. Where is Mel Kiper that he can't just be sitting in his library?
Did you see what Mel Kiper Jr. said to defend the Cincinnati Bengals?
Every single time Mel Kiper was talking, I was looking at the background of his room.
As an organization, he defended the entire organization on the Stephen A. Smith show, and it's like somebody sent me a clip of it, and it's just it's repulsive to see. He's like, the Bengals aren't nearly as bad as everybody says they are. Like, he's bringing up they made 5 playoffs recently in a row. It's like, dude, he literally cited, as far as examples of a good organization, the Super Bowls that they made in 1981 and 88.
But again, Mel Kiper Jr. at this
It's
point
like,
has.
dude, these are 30 plus years ago.
I mean, I saw the tweet. I forget who put it out the day of the draft, is saying that we're 8 years removed from his guarantee that Jimmy Clausen will be like a starting quarterback in the NFL in 10 years, or he'll quit his job.
Yeah, I saw
Like,
that.
like Mel Kiper Jr. at this point, and I'm not saying that everybody's going to nail every draft pick, but Mel Kiper Jr. has a long list of L's at this point, right? He's basically the Floyd Mayweather gif at this point, where he's just getting them thrown at him.
Yeah. Well, back to the point of Joe Burrow. It's disappointing because I just want to see more people stand up to that awful organization.
But I think, and I don't even think Joe Burrow would have had to go the Elway Eli route. I think he could have made it semi. I think if he had shown any sort of hesitation whatsoever in wanting to go to the Bengals, they had an easy selection of Chase Young, arguably the best player in the draft anyway,
Yeah.
playing in Ohio. I think they could have easily made that switch. But Joe Burrow seems to be pretty darn excited about playing for the Bengals. He had his Athens, Ohio, T-shirt on. He's got the state flag on his shirt. Like, he's there. He's loving it. He went to Ohio State. He wanted to be in Ohio.
Again, I wish him luck because I think he was a great college player, and I think he's a good kid. But man, like it's funny. You see Bengals stands, like the fandom we talk about on our show of local team. It's delusional. They're like, look at the weapons. He's got AJ Green. He's got Joe Mixon. They're listing these. It's like, dude, he still has a dipshit owner. That doesn't change. It doesn't change overnight.
I think I saw 21.5 over under 21.5 touchdown passes for Joe Burrow, year one. That's basically one. It's less than 1.5 a game.
I'm gonna go under. What about you?
I don't know. It's a good number. I'll have to think about it. But like,
Well, you figure you got the Steelers twice.
yeah.
You got the Ravens twice.
But I feel like the Bengals definitely start him day one because they're that. Like, it's probably not in their best interest, but they're going to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is he wearing 9? Is that the number?
That was Palmer's number. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he might be just going full Palmer. Face Palmer.
We got to discuss our boy, Jameis Winston.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of face-palming quarterbacks, Jameis Winston reportedly to the Saints. Has this been official yet?
Oh.
Because this is to me, it was interesting that it was so talked about like it was a done deal, but still, as of this morning, not a done deal. I was sort of interested in that. Because usually when Schefter tweets something, it happens like pretty soon after. We're now a day and a half, because it happened sort of overnight yesterday. And as of this morning, still not a done deal.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Now, I know there's some compensatory picks, but that was like 4 p.m. Eastern.
Well, we have
blah.
a lot of stuff. And one is saying the Steelers never offered him a deal.
Right.
So there's a lot of headlines. He passed up more money.
Well, I believe the thing I saw also on the passed up more money is that the Steelers have $85,000 more dollars in salary cap room than the Bucks have, meaning that both of them are slim on salary cap money, which means both of them aren't offering him a ton of money. But also the idea, let's say they both maxed out what they could offer him. The fact of him turning down $85,000 more dollars, not really passing on a bigger deal from the Bucks, right? I mean, that could be the difference in state income tax. That could be the difference in moving out of the South to Pittsburgh when he doesn't have to move out of the South to play in New Orleans. Like, they're $85,000. It's a lot of money for me, but not a lot of money in an NFL contract difference. Also, kind of neither here nor there with Jameis, the Bucks, the Steelers. He's getting a 1-year deal to be a backup quarterback. That's where we're at with Jameis Winston. He's not, as some people predicted, getting a record-setting, definitely bigger than Goff deal because he's more talented than Goff. He's accomplished more than Goff. He's the greatest quarterback under the age of 26. He's thrown the most touchdowns for any quarterback. Like, there are, you all know who we're talking about, who's guaranteed he would be a starter this year.
Well, they also re-signed Taysom Hill.
Right. But at this point, it seems like, and I don't really understand why the Saints are doing this, because they re-signed Taysom Hill and they gave him a bunch of money. They've basically admitted that Taysom Hill is worth that money to them to do the job that he did last year, which is to play one play every 2 possessions.
Special teams.
Like, it seems like they're overvaluing financially what Taysom Hill brings to the team.
$16 million guaranteed, $21 million overall.
That seems reckless for a guy. That doesn't seem reckless if Taysom Hill is doing what he did for you last year and he is replacing Teddy Bridgewater as your backup quarterback. But that does seem like a reckless financial decision if he's only doing that and you're still having to sign somebody to be the backup.
Well, I'm going to say this much about the Jameis Winston signing. The first thing is, stop comparing this to Teddy Bridgewater. Just stop. The Teddy Bridgewater situation versus Jameis Winston, for anyone out there, and I've seen a lot of idiots do this, there's no comparison. Bridgewater was a starter on the Vikings, shredded his knee. He bounced around the Jets, the Saints, as a backup, a journeyman backup for a quick minute. Jameis Winston was the number 1 overall pick, started for 5 years, basically, minus a few games for the Bucks. So there's no comparison. Stop saying that there's no comparison at all. I don't want to hear that because it's not a comparison. The second thing is, everyone's saying, oh, well, they're grooming Jameis. There's no indication of that. Sean Payton has been very adamant that he thinks Taysom Hill could be the future quarterback of the Saints.
I don't believe him, though.
And that's fine.
Because then why are you signing other quarterbacks?
Fair enough. But my point is this. Drew Brees.
Because he's not second on the depth chart. Because he's not taking the snaps when Drew Brees goes down. That just seems like a lie to me.
Drew Brees could play a couple more years.
And Drew Brees could get hurt, and Jameis Winston could be starting week 4 next year. The bigger question for me is...
Tell me about this real quick. You know we'd all want to... You talk about must-see TV.
I mean, there was a great stat that was out that Jameis Winston has completed more passes to the New Orleans Saints than Taysom Hill has.
Yeah, I saw it.
Fantastic stat.
10-7. Tell me you don't want to see this. We all want to see this. Tom Brady starting for the Bucks. Jameis Winston starting for the Saints. Heads back to Tampa Bay. Oh, you know you want to watch that.
I like the New Orleans Saints as like an organization. I like their uniforms. I like a lot of their players. I love the city of New Orleans. But I got to say, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sean Payton, grossly overrated. Grossly overrated. And stuff like this is one of the reasons why. Cool. You put up crazy offensive numbers playing in a dome, throwing the ball around a ton. You got to 1 Super Bowl. You won it. You haven't been back since. You've choked away a lot of playoff games. And you make reckless personnel decisions.
But let me ask you this. When you say Sean Payton's grossly overrated, where is Drew Brees without Sean Payton? Where is Tony Romo without Sean Payton? I mean, these are 2 guys that he groomed to become extremely successful.
And by successful, you mean statistically successful?
Yes.
Okay. The quarterback who's thrown for the most yards to win the Super Bowl is Eli Manning.
How about this comp, Joe? And let's see how you're not going to like it, but I'm going to do it. Sean Payton is the Mike D'Antoni of the NFL.
It's
Because if you look at
the only reason that's a disrespectful comp is because the rest of the NFL isn't playing Sean Payton's offense. The rest of the NFL isn't like, we are doing this where we're going to try to have our quarterback throw for 5,000 yards and win the Super Bowl, and we're going to build a team that's the way Sean Payton does it. Now, there are certainly aspects of Sean Payton's offense that are used around the league, but that's, it's like saying, Sean Payton throws a lot of screens and Andy Reid throws a lot of screens.
Well, the reason I say that is you look at, because we're talking about stats. Look at the stats under guys who played under Mike D'Antoni, and look at the stats, again, like I just referenced 2 quarterbacks that have played under Sean Payton.
Well, I think a more viable comparison is comparing a Sean Payton quarterback to a Mike D'Antoni point guard. That might be that's a way more viable. If you're the quarterback in Sean Payton systems, your numbers are going to go up. If you're the point guard in Mike D'Antoni's system, you're going to be an MVP candidate. The difference between D'Antoni and Payton is Payton has had arguably plenty of talent to compare. Like, he's had good defenses. He has good running backs. He has good receivers. He has Drew Brees. Like, he's not taking – Sean Payton's not going around and being like, give me the Dolphins, I'll turn them into a playoff team. Mike D'Antoni, again, is criticized for not winning a championship, but Mike D'Antoni is criticized for not winning a championship because he kind of gets close with teams he never should have in the first place. So that's like, it's a double-edged sword with D'Antoni. D'Antoni gets criticized for injecting himself into a conversation that his talent on his rosters says he shouldn't be in, whereas Sean Payton has talent and goes to playoff games and loses to teams that are less talented.
Well, I think the Jameis Winston signing maybe shows, I don't know if I want to say a false confidence, but it shows that Payton thinks he can turn this guy around maybe in the long term, whereas another offensive respected coach and Arians couldn't. Does that make sense? Like, maybe he feels like, hey,
but also
I can limit the turnovers.
But also, he could be like, I know Jameis can throw for 5,000 yards, and that's what we're doing here. Like, it may not be the thing that leads you to a Super Bowl in the NFL, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing it. Like, Breeze has thrown for a ton of yards, and they've got one Super Bowl to show for it. But there is no lack of gaudy passing stats in New Orleans.
No, I know, but let's not forget how hard it is. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has won Super Bowl. Like, it's really hard to win multiple. That's a very short list of quarterbacks who've won multiple Super Bowls.
But they've also appeared in one Super Bowl. And they've also, like, the Breeze-Payton pairing has been there significantly longer than the Rodgers-Packers pairing. And also, we all agree that Mike McCarthy fucked up Aaron Rodgers' career, and he has one Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers has one Super Bowl in spite of Mike McCarthy, right? Don't we all agree that at this point? That the fact that Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a second Super Bowl isn't an Aaron Rodgers problem? I mean, I guess there are some people that are critical, but I would say proof is in Mike McCarthy getting, shot from a cannon and them immediately winning 13 games with a guy who's never coached in the NFL before and sounds like the defenseman for the Calgary Flames. Matt LaFleur comes in and they win 13 games. Like, I mean, I would just argue you're not going to appear in another Super Bowl. Like, because a lot of people treat Sean Payton like he's the cream of the crop.
Okay, well, where do we put him then? Let's just get to it.
As far as NFL coaches go?
Yeah, let's give our top tier, And then where do you put Sean Payton?
I think that a lot of guys. Here's what I'll say. I think that there are coaches in the NFL who at this point in their coaching career don't have the success of Sean Payton, but they're still better coaches.
Like who?
Frank Reich. Although suspect as hell,
I would completely disagree with that.
Okay.
So if I'm looking at coaches off the top of my head, obviously Bill Belichick, right?
Andy Reid?
Andy Reid's up there for me. Top 5.
McVay?
No.
Because why? Because the one Super Bowl he got to in like year 2, he didn't win it?
He hasn't done enough. So I would have
Right, but that's precisely my point. So they're never going to have a resume of a guy who's been coaching for 20 years.
Well, hold on. Let me just finish this list. So I'd have Belichick, Andy Reid,
Shanahan?
Pete Carroll. Not ready to put Shanahan.
Shanahan goes from a 4 and whatever team to the Super Bowl in 2 seasons. He's been in as many Super Bowls as Sean Payton has. He's been coaching there 3 years. And then you get into the question of, so they have to have accomplished what? So is Doug Peterson better than Sean Payton? I don't think so. But also, I'm not putting him in the argument just because he won the Super Bowl with the Eagles. In fact, I'll weigh that as part of Frank Reich's argument.
I mean, what's your list then?
A list of what? Guys better than Sean Payton?
Just give me 5 coaches you have above Sean Payton. Can you do that?
Yeah, I just did. Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, Shanahan, and Frank Reich. And, I mean, I can keep going probably.
Frank Reich. Wow. That's interesting. Based on what?
Based on him being the offensive coordinator for the Eagles team.
That's what I was going to.
That puts up a ton of points, beats Patriots with a backup. Based on going to the Colts, based on what he does. Like, I got to say, I think you've got to question again, but he's not the GM. You've got to question again Frank Reich, the way that they approached last year. But again, Andrew Luck left. It is what it is. But, like, I don't know how much say he has in extending Jacoby Brissett. And, I criticized Brissett by saying Frank Reich didn't trust him in the way that they ran some of their plays down the stretch last year. But then I'm also like, yeah, I don't trust Jacoby Brissett. So maybe that just improves Frank Reich for me. What about Vrabel? What about, I don't know. But my point is, like, to me, to say Sean Payton is great because he went to a Super Bowl. How long ago is that now?
I mean, it's
10 years ago?
10 years ago, but again, they're consistently good. I think this year is an example. Your starting quarterback goes down. They go undefeated under Teddy Bridgewater. Like, to me, that's a sign of a good coach. The team doesn't completely fold. They not only win, they win every game.
And then they lose a home game to the Minnesota Vikings.
Fair enough. But I still think Sean Payton's a good coach.
I didn't say he's not a good coach. I just think he's overrated. This is basically my Russell Wilson argument all over again. Just because I think he's overrated doesn't mean I don't think he's good. Doesn't mean I don't think he's great. I just think people have Saint Sean Payton.
I just think it's interesting that you're listing like guys who are just so new that don't have the longevity. Like, it's still to be determined. Like a Shanahan or a Sean McVay.
A Shanahan goes in. Another guy goes into New Orleans last year for their losses last year. Goes into New Orleans last year, beats them. This is a team that's put together. He's obviously had him and Lynch together have built this. I mean, there's not a ton of star power on that 49ers team.
No.
Meanwhile, they're in the Super Bowl. So if there's not a ton of star power and they're in the Super Bowl, who do you put that on?
obviously that they were. Well, I think it is a combination of those things. They were very well put together. They're the definition of a team, especially defensively. I mean, they got after it.
And look, the league turns around very fast. The guys who just a couple years. I mean, how about John Harbaugh?
Yeah, I can't believe you forgot him. He's top 5 for me.
Okay, I'm of the opinion also that Tomlin's overrated. So, but I bet you some people would argue that Tomlin's got a Super Bowl. Tomlin's got another Super Bowl appearance. I'm not a Tomlin defender, but if you're a Tomlin defender, could you make the argument that he's better than Sean Payton?
I think they're good comparisons.
I think they're good comparisons because I both think they're overrated.
We just need a season. That's all we need. Please.
Again, I just look at this Saints situation. Sean Payton definitely has a great offensive mind, and he's definitely done some things with Drew Brees in terms of just, again, the gaudy passing numbers. He's now paying 3 quarterbacks, and he's paying them all. I'm assuming Jameis Winston's going to sign for what? $6 million a year, $8 million. Like, Drew Brees gets paid a lot. They just gave Taysom Hill guaranteed money, and they're saying, like, you can't play all these quarterbacks, dude.
We'll see. I don't know. Let's talk Last Dance.
Yes. What were your takeaways? I mean, we start from the beginning. The beginning is basically it's the episode 3. We had episodes 3 and 4 last night. Episode 3 is essentially the Rodman episode. I got to say I was a little disappointed in the Rodman episode. They gave us a couple fun nuggets. He's slamming Miller Lights and then driving his motorcycle within seconds of each other. That's reckless. I would not I tend to drink my Miller Lights in the safety and security of my own home, or certainly with a designated driver waiting to take me.
Dennis was drinking. I put that screenshot. He was drinking a Miller Lite right after they played the game.
Yeah, and the cops just watched him drink a Miller Lite and then let him get on it. But I got to say, I was a little disappointed. Now, to be fair, I'm an NBA super freak. I've watched the Bad Boys 30 for 30. I've watched the Rodman 30 for 30.
Both great 30 for 30s.
We've covered, at this point, a lot of the Dennis Rodman stories.
Fascinating.
But I was hoping to get more of the Dennis Rodman from the Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan point of view. They gave you one. They give you one fun nugget, right? He demanded a vacation mid-season and went to Vegas. That was like the one. Otherwise, it was like very, I don't know. I feel like they were like, yeah, and he dated Madonna, and he dyed his hair. It's like, we did an hour on Scottie Pippen's like upbringing. We met 15 guys from the Central Arkansas basketball team.
But again, I think because ESPN had already done a 30 for 30 on Dennis Rodman, which is one of my favorites. I really recommend everybody watch that. It's so good. I mean, Dennis Rodman he's become to me one of my favorite all-time players. I'll be honest. The more I learn about him, Dennis Rodman did not play basketball until age 20. Think about this. He didn't play basketball in high school. He was homeless for a couple years. He grew. And what I find fascinating about Dennis is he goes to some small school. What is it? Southeast Oklahoma State. He averages like 25 points a game there. He then completely changes how he plays as a player in the NBA. It's all defense, all rebounding.
Yeah, and he even changed over the course of the NBA. He was definitely a motor guy. He was an energy guy. He was a defense, rebounding guy from the Pistons. He then even took the rebounding thing to like a next level where he's like, I'm going to be the league's best rebounder, which he talks about like just practicing rebounds and angles and all that. He even post Bad Boys Pistons, the end of the Bad Boys Pistons, into the Spurs, into the Bulls, he was just like, I'm going to rebound, and that's it. and I talked about it on the last episode. Just there was a time, there was the nationally televised Spurs games and the Spurs playoff games where you're like, is he going to grab 40 rebounds and walk off the court and never play basketball again? This is exciting. That was when he really did that. But he was certainly a great defensive player.
2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Here's a fun fact. They said on SportsCenter last night. The only people in NBA history to have multiple championships and multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards. Dennis Rodman, can you name the other two?
Multiple championships.
And multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards. There's only 3 all time.
Kawhi.
Kawhi is number 2. And there's a third.
And multiple championships. Hakeem.
You got it. Good. Very good, Joe. Hakeem, Kawhi, and Dennis Rodman, the only 3 to do that. Which, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's to be a multiple defensive player of the year is something else on its own. You know what I mean? Because there's plenty of guys who have multiple championships and are part of championship teams. But normally, if you're that guy, like a Kawhi, just look at Kawhi and Hakeem. They're also the best player on their team.
Yeah.
Kawhi goes from being the defensive guy to growing into the best player on the Spurs after guys age out to going into, for sure, being the best player on the Raptors, the best player on this Clippers team. Hakeem's obviously the best player on the Rockets the whole time. Dennis Rodman is is helping teams win championships by being the defensive player of the year.
Yeah. I mean, he's he's fascinating to me, and they go through that in the 30 for 30, how when he showed up to the Spurs, that was the first time he shows his hair is bleached, and he, has the whole alter ego. And
which, if you watch the Bad Boys doc and you watch the Rodman 30 for 30, the Chuck Daly father,
yes,
like the whole thing that this obviously is a Bulls documentary, and really, let's be honest, it's a Michael Jordan documentary. The whole thing that this sort of glosses over, that is why I was like, they didn't really give us as much of Rodman as I thought, is like, they even gloss over like, then he was outside the palace at Auburn Hills with a gun. He was going to kill himself. It's like, guys, we do, like, again, we're going so in depth on things. We're just glossing over. Dennis Rodman almost killed himself outside of his own basketball arena. He had this thing with Daly. Daly really turned him into going like, be this guy. You could be a Hall of Fame NBA player if you play this way. He was like a dad to him. And when Daly leaves the Pistons, and other guys, I believe it was Mahorn, other guys that were bad boys that get shipped around, he really felt like, and you see this with Rodman, he's kind of a weird guy, but like even the shot of him and Phil Jackson being friends, he takes this like his basketball, like you always talk about sports like it's a business. He really takes it like it's a family. He treats these guys like Rodman has this like soft side to him where like he wants to be your friend. When the Bad Boys Pistons started to shake up, if you watch these other documentaries, he couldn't even comprehend.
He didn't understand the business end.
That guys were leaving.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean?
I mean, it is fascinating. Yeah, Chuck Daly was basically his dad. Rodman didn't know his dad. Do you know the story of his dad? His dad is in the Philippines. His dad supposedly has like 50 kids.
Yeah.
Something insane. He didn't know his dad. Chuck Daly took him in. Dennis Rodman, when he was drafted in his first few years, he was drinking orange juice.
Yeah.
He'd never drank alcohol. He'd never done drugs. He didn't do any of that stuff. And you're right. And he didn't fully understand it. And in a way, Phil Jackson, and they kind of explain it, but not in detail. Phil Jackson was Chuck Daly number 2 for him, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Because he was older, and Phil Jackson accepted Dennis Rodman for who he was. And to Jordan and Pippen's credit, they all agreed that they did too. Like, they accepted Dennis for who Dennis was.
And let's just talk about that. There's a couple of things, and again, this is a very pro Jordan and pro Bulls documentary. There's definitely some Final Cut aspects of this with Michael Jordan. A lot of things get glossed over that don't make the Bulls look as good as they would. You know, like we didn't get until this episode that the Bulls got swept in that Celtics series. They're like, oh, by the way, they lost the year before in a sweep. Like, there's a lot of things.
And they, to be honest, they also skipped over. The Bulls lost 3 straight years to the Pistons. They only showed 2 of them. They didn't show.
Yeah, they didn't show. They lost in 88 4-1. They lose in 89 4-2. They really focus mostly on they lose in 90 Game 7.
Yeah.
And they do this whole Scottie Pippen migraine thing and blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, the 88 boat raced. 89, Jordan shoots 46% in the series, and people love to shit on LeBron. Shot 75% from the line. People forget all this stuff because Michael Jordan would never miss free throws, and how can you be the GOAT if you can't make 85% of your free throws, and blah, 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 blah. They were beating up Jordan, no doubt about it, and by beating him up and by him having to do absolutely everything, he was going to the line, he was tired of shooting 75% of his free throws. Either way, they get boat raced, they get a little closer. It was definitely a maturation of that Bulls team to the point where they go. But, and we'll go down the whole Isaiah path, I think, here, and the walking off the court and the hatred, and this is why Isaiah's not on the dream team, and in the 90s and the 80s, these guys weren't all going out and golfing together in playoff series. They were, but don't forget Ainge and Jordan, and they're not going on banana boats and whatever. We see in this doc, Dennis Rodman straight up shoved Scottie Pippen from behind, recklessly and blatantly tried to hurt him.
Yeah, it was bad.
The Bulls welcome him with open arms. Like this whole Jordan and Pippen and Bird, they would never go. Yeah, well, they didn't have to go find super teams. They were the Chicago Bulls. They'd won 3 times. They lost Horace Grant to the Magic. Horace Grant proceeds to smack them around in the 95 playoffs and get carried off by the Orlando Magic on their shoulders, which I'm assuming comes next week. And we replace him with Dennis Rodman, hated rival who tried to injure us both for 4 consecutive years in the playoffs.
Well, it is fascinating, especially for us who grew up with this. If you're a 90s is the best basketball player, you can't not watch this and say guys didn't join forces. That's just factually incorrect. Like you're saying, it really is. I do like how the documentary shows that, how the Bulls and Pistons was such a heated rivalry. Michael Jordan even says on this documentary that it might have been a bigger accomplishment, a bigger deal for them to beat the Pistons than it was the Lakers in their first title, because that was their rival. Again, the Pistons had beat them 3 straight years in a row in the playoffs. And here's what I find Rodman's
and the Pistons going on to win 2 of those championships.
Back to back. The Pistons win 2. Here's why Rodman's fascinating. You know what Rodman is? He's reverse KD in this sense.
Yeah.
He wins the titles, and then he goes and joins the team of the guys he used to beat the shit out of. It is reverse KD.
Now, the Bulls trade for him, right? They trade Will Perdue to the Spurs. Like, Popovich was like, get Dennis Rodman the fuck out of here.
Was Popovich coaching then?
I think he was.
Or was it Hill?
Might have been. I forget who it was, but I thought there was I think Popovich.
No.
Maybe the second year or something like that. Because how early on is Popovich? I mean, we're talking about 95.
There's no way Popovich was coaching that. I'm gonna look it up. All right, so yeah, Bob Hill was the coach.
Okay.
Popovich came in 96.
So the Spurs give him away for essentially nothing. Spurs give him away for Purdue.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Bulls trade for him, but you're clowning yourself. You're clowning yourself. You are putting on a big red nose, floppy shoes, and you and 40 of your friends are getting into a Volkswagen Beetle. If you don't think that Jerry Krause, Jerry Reinsdorf, and Phil Collins, that would be hilarious. Phil Collins as a Chicago Bulls coach would be epic. And Phil Jackson, don't talk to Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan about the possibility of acquiring Dennis Rodman. You're clowning yourself.
Well, they did. They said it in the documentary.
Yeah, I know. My point is, people out there going, "What? They weren't colluding with." It's like, yeah, they absolutely were. They're like, we can get this guy who's wilding for nothing and bring him here to replace Horace Grant, who just beat you guys in the playoffs. Are you down for it? And they're like, absolutely. So, like, just get rid of all this, like, the super teams didn't happen. There's never been more hated rivals.
And I think it showed that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they beat them 3 straight years in a row.
We don't have KD throwing Steph Curry into the stands.
I mean, that shove on Scottie Pippen. And I want to address that. Anybody, here's all about basketball. And I would say all sports. The beauty of the game has never been better. And I think the same when I watch some of these formations and plays that you see in the NFL. It's the same thing. The beauty of sports has never been better. It's never been played at a higher, more just fluid level. You watch these highlights, and I'm sorry, but I'll just say, you watch these highlights of the bad boys. It's not basketball.
I mean, it is basketball. It's them competing in a way that was within the rules and like whatever. But it's certainly not. It's certainly not as skilled of basketball as today. But again, they weren't the most talented team, but they found a way to win within the rules of the game.
No, and I get that.
And that's what the Knicks certainly tried to do with the way that they tried to build their own version of the bad boys to try to beat Jordan after that.
No, and I get that, but I'm kind of just bringing it back to that era of basketball versus this era. That's all I want to bring up, because if I see one more stupid fucking tweet about whether it's LeBron or any of these guys, just stop it. Stop talking, because the guys would be able to bully right back. I actually looked it up out of curiosity. Not a single player from those Pistons back-to-back title teams weighed as much as LeBron weighs now.
Right. No, it's not even close. Like Bill Laimbeer, the guy who's the enforcer,
It's like 225,
yeah,
230.
Yeah. No, it's a joke. And the idea of like, oh, they're going to shove KD around. Like, okay, KD's not coming anywhere near the paint. He's a 7-footer who's going to bang threes on you the whole time. Like, what? Like, okay, KD's not going to be able to get layups? Great, don't need him.
He doesn't need them.
Steph Curry, I mean.
He's just jacking threes.
Yeah, what are we talking about? And also, the idea of that's just the way you needed to play then. It's like, dude, Reggie Miller was a 5-time All-Star. He hung out on the perimeter. He ran off screens. He shot threes. Like, Mitch Richmond was an all-star. He ran around the perimeter. He shot threes. Like, it's not like you had to – this was the only way to achieve in the NBA. It's just that's the way the Pistons fought their way through the East. And that was – and certainly for the Pistons to lose to the Lakers, then beat the Lakers, like, that was a way for them to go – we're not going to run Showtime against the Lakers. We're not going to score more points than Michael Jordan. How do we beat Jordan, and then how do we beat the Showtime Lakers? This is the strategy that we use.
I mean, what this documentary is really showing is just how well put together the Chicago Bulls were. Obviously, there's Jordan. I did like how they highlighted when Phil takes over from Doug Collins, where it was all centered around Jordan, and Phil brings the triangle, and how you got to trust your teammates, which obviously you see in the playoffs, and you see with whether it's John Paxson or Steve Kerr, these game-winning threes.
And even obviously they show the Lakers series where he's just feeding Paxson.
Exactly, and they show that.
Can we go back 1 second? Craig Elo gets slandered in this by Ron Harper. Ron Harper trashes Elo. He's like, this fucking bullshit. Craig Elo is definitely one of the poster child for like, God, this was 90s basketball. This guy's a mullet guarding Michael Jordan. But you got to give credit where credit's due. Jordan double clutches that jumper. Like, how much better defense did you want Craig Elo to put on him in that fucking situation? Gets his hand in his face. Jordan double clutches and hits that shot. Like, I'm on the Craig Elo. This is the guy who's guarding Michael Jordan in the '90s playoffs. But I'm also like, how much better do you want him to do? Ron Harper, take it easy.
It's pretty funny though.
Yeah, but Ron Harper just murdering. Obviously, Ron Harper he's sitting down in these interviews. He's gonna talk about their three-peat that he was a part of on the second go around after he sustained some injuries, and he was a great player himself. And then he's injured, and he comes in and he's like more of a role player for the Bulls. But for him to just take a shot at Elo, Elo gets him to hang in the air. I don't know how much more Ron Harper wanted him to do.
I gotta look up Elo's stats. I mean, he was. What year was that?
That was 90.
89-90?
Yeah.
Or 90-91?
89-90.
Elo was averaging 13 points a game, so he was decent.
I mean, I don't even care. I don't care if that was Craig Elo's only time on the court in his whole NBA career. He got him a double clutch. He gets a running, sliding free throw line jumper that he has to hang in the air.
By the way,
how much better do you want Craig Elo to do?
My hair.
Sometimes you gotta tip the hat to the guy who made the shot.
My hair is nearing the Elo mullet stage.
What's amazing, the biggest, sacrilege to Craig Elo. Craig Elo then goes on to be on Jordan's security team later on. He becomes one of the Sniff brothers.
Sniff brother adjacent.
Did you see that guy who was in the Sniff brothers with the mullet and the mustache?
Oh yeah.
With the mayor's curly mullet?
Oh yeah. No, but back to my point. I mean, we got to remember how well put together these Bulls teams were. You had the greatest player in the league. You had Scottie Pippen, who ends up being a top 30 all-time player. All time. You have arguably the best coach of all time. Like, you really had some pieces that fit well, that everything just meshed.
I mean, again, you got to, I would assume that was sort of the Phil Jackson episode too, right? We're probably not getting a whole lot more on.
Well, you for number 4 for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's got Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman doing yoga. I tweeted, I was like, he must have been microdosing the Gatorade. Like, how are you getting Dennis Rodman? Dennis Rodman's there in skids. Dennis Rodman's there in pajama pants. You got him doing yoga. Like, it's definitely, when you look at Phil Jackson, the whole personality manager thing and the handling each of these guys differently and the way, I mean, Phil Jackson's done some sort of interesting things in his coaching career too, like the whole thing with the Jordan rules. I don't know if you know the whole thing about, like, he's giving off the record quotes and then blaming him on, like, some other guy. Like, he's playing his own mental games throughout the years with these guys. Some of them, not all. They're not all super positive Zen master, like, I'm your best friend kind of shit. But Phil Jackson takes the Tex Winner triangle, gets Michael Jordan to participate in it, certainly uses Scottie Pippen as his point forward, brings in on the second go-around, Rodman, and manages his personality to take the Horace Grant role and to take it to this whole other level where they go on and win 72 games. But, like, Phil Jackson, his greatness and his Hall of Fame stature is in his management of personalities. It's honestly, like, unmatched across sports.
Yeah.
No one's ever had bigger egos. And that's the thing that we have to also talk about. This Bulls team does not exist today. In today, in the social media era, in the everybody's got something, like, everybody's got a cell phone picture of Rodman in Vegas while he's supposed to be at a game. 200 girls have photographs of a sleeping Michael Jordan after they met up on Tinder and had sex with him in a hotel room. Scottie Pippen's definitely subtweeting his contract issues from burner accounts a la KD. Like, this whole thing explodes if it happens today. There's no way any of this is possible. And that's why people love to like shit on these guys today. It's like, you have no idea what your teams would have been like. I'll just say it. 0% chance if social media exists that the Bulls have 6 championships. 0%. It just doesn't happen. Scottie Pippen never comes back because the whole internet tells him he's a fucking pussy. Rodman just never comes back from Vegas. Like, Deadspin just got him, like, taking kamikaze shots at a nightclub. Get real.
Yeah.
That is part of, LeBron's greatness, Steph Curry's greatness, Kawhi's greatness, is some of those guys' ability to stay out of it. KD obviously had his thing. Steph's wife saying the NBA is rigged. Kyrie's, there are guys who haven't managed to pull themselves out of it. Aaron Gordon is dropping Dwayne Wade diss tracks in the middle of the night during a pandemic over a lost dunk contest. But if you don't think Michael Jordan's got a burner account on Twitter, I'm not sure Michael Jordan doesn't currently have a burner account on Twitter. I'm not sure I haven't argued with Michael Jordan about the Jordan-LeBron GOAT argument on Twitter.
Yeah, and I tweeted that too. Like, in particular, talking about these Rodman stories. You're never going to hear this again. Like, it's a moment of time that we're never going to see again. That Dennis Rodman could just freely go to Las Vegas and party without somebody taking a picture. I mean, this shit it's everywhere.
Yeah. And the social media age is like nuts, and like that goes back through all sport. I mean, can you imagine if there was cell phone video of Mickey Mantle falling down the steps after leaving a bar, and that's how he hurt his knee, not in some fictional like sewer that's randomly planted in right field at Yankee Stadium? None of this stuff would ever happen. But I think the thing is just to appreciate the world that was then, and also appreciate the guys that now remain out of the fray.
Yeah,
You gotta live pretty squeaky clean not to have a story about you. Also, since we're doing that, Dennis Rodman, load management pioneer. Another 90s.
that's what Donovan Mitchell tweeted.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Another 90s urban legend. Guys, the difference between today and then is guys weren't skipping in. Dennis Rodman went to Phil Jackson and said, "I need a vacation." Legendary.
We need to show everybody what actually happened, though, you said about the Vegas.
There is a clip, I believe it's from the Jalen and Jacoby show. The director of this of the documentary goes on and says Jordan didn't go get him in Vegas, because everybody on Twitter was making the same joke. This is just Jordan's excuse to go to Vegas. Jordan's going to Vegas. Oh, Jordan's going to be the one that goes to Vegas to get Rodman. It was unclear in the documentary. It made it seem like he goes to Vegas. Then they asked Jordan, did he come back on time? He says, no, I had to go get him. If you go watch the Jalen Jacoby thing, he basically says he goes to Vegas. He comes back. He still doesn't show up for practice. And Jordan's got to go across the street from the Bulls practice facility, where apparently Rodman needed to live literally across the street just to go to practice. And that was when Jordan showed up and pulls him out of bed, where he was with Carmen Electra. And he even says that Jordan claims to have grabbed him by his nasal piercing or his lip piercing and pulling him out of the room. Can we also talk about there being some sort of 90s Bulls fountain of youth? B.J. Armstrong looks younger than when he played. Michael Jordan's mom is 26. Carmen Electra is 31. Why did no one involved in the 90s Bulls except for Phil Jackson age?
Horace Grant looks great.
Horace Grant looks like he ate a couple of the guys that played on the 90s Bulls, but otherwise, even Bill Cartwright. Bill Cartwright somehow looks younger now than when he played with the 90s Bulls. And I'm not kidding. Remember he used to go with the gray goatee?
Yeah.
Somehow his hair is now dark again? This is 30 years later. How is no one involved in the 90s Bulls aging? Is this some sort of Native American, Phil Jackson, peyote, fountain of youth dosing? B.J. Armstrong is Benjamin Button. B.J. Armstrong literally could be playing high school basketball.
Yeah.
Is B.J. Armstrong like using like Korean face creams? Like, what is he like dabbing on little eye stuff at night? Carmen Electra's 48 years old.
Cincinnati's finest, Carmen Electra.
Is she from Cincy?
Princeton High School. Yeah, she's Cincinnati girl.
Horace Grant calling the Pistons a bunch of bitches.
Oh, my God, that was great. While wearing the NBA Care shirt.
Yeah. I got to say, I'm really hopeful that we get some Horace Grant. Like, the Horace Grant years, the post-Horace Grant, that's a storyline that I hope that they don't gloss over in this, like, let's just pump the Bulls thing that they're doing.
Well, I saw a preview.
Oh, did you?
They're going into Horace.
Okay.
Because what happened is people were leaking stuff to the press about their team, the first three-peat. And Michael, to this day, is saying it was Horace.
That what?
He was leaking shit, internal stuff from the team.
During the first three-peat, you're saying?
And Horace is denying it.
Okay.
And I saw a preview for the next.
And is this what undoes the Horace on the Bulls?
I'm assuming.
Okay. Because what people don't talk about nearly enough, again, I know that there's the Jordan slurpers out there, many of which just were not alive and did not watch the 90s, and even some of them, Sam Tripoli, that were alive that have apparently forgotten about it. Jordan retires. Jordan comes back. Horace Grant has since gone to the Magic.
Correct.
Where he becomes an all-star.
Correct.
The Magic throttle the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan, averaging 30-plus in the series in 95. Penny, Horace Grant, Shaquille O'Neal beat him in 6 games. And that is what spurs, no pun intended, the Bulls to go out and go, we need to replace Horace Grant's defense and rebounding in the power forward position. Let's go get Dennis Rodman.
I mean, Horace Grant was good, guys. People forget his last year. I'm looking at it right now. Horace Grant's last year with the Bulls on the first three-peat. 15 points a game, 11 rebounds.
Yeah.
3 assists, 1.2 blocks. I mean, you lost a guy. Again, you lost a 15 and 11 guy. Those are good numbers for the third guy.
Yeah.
On your squad.
The Kevin Lovish role.
You're right. It's very similar. 15 and 11. Those sound like Kevin Love's numbers when the Cavs won a title.
Yeah. But Jordan did it all alone. And here's the thing, no one does it alone. And then, in fact, when you lose Horace Grant, he joins another team, and he beats you guys, and they carry him off the court on their shoulders because he got revenge against the team that disrespected him and didn't appreciate him. And then they've got to go out and join forces with their most heated rival in the history of Scottie and Michael's career to come back and beat them. Let's not act like this shit has never happened before.
Yeah. People believe what they want to believe. That's the problem.
But again, I watch all of this stuff, and it makes me appreciate every single one of these guys. It makes me appreciate Jordan. It makes me appreciate Pippen. It makes me appreciate Rodman, Horace Grant. It makes me appreciate Paxson and Kerr. It makes me appreciate Phil Jackson. But also, if you watch it, and you've got to read between the lines a little again because they're pumping the Bulls, but they are making it very, very clear to you. There's no Jordan without Pippen. There's no second three-peat without Rodman. I'm sure they're going to hopefully show you that there's no first three-peat without Horace Grant.
Yeah. I mean, they are obviously it's a lot different because it's a different sport, but I see how this Bulls team won 6 titles, and it's very New England Patriots-esque. You know, you have your Phil Jackson / Bill Belichick, you have your Jordan / Tom Brady, and it's you have other pieces around it. Now, obviously, Brady's had a lot of different pieces, but I mean, the constant was always Jordan, Scotty, and Phil.
Yeah. And when Jerry Krause says, "I'm not bringing back Scotty or Phil," suddenly Michael Jordan wasn't as firm on his, "I'm gonna defend my title as long as I hold it." Suddenly Jordan was like, "You know what? You're right. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good." But you said you were gonna defend your title as long as you had the title. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to play without Phil. Yeah. I won't play for any other coach besides Phil.
You want to hear something crazy? So I was looking last night out of curiosity. So when Jordan retired at age 34.
That was the final retirement.
Yeah.
No, that was the second retirement. The second of 3, correct?
Correct.
That was the post 97, 98.
Jordan retired at 34. LeBron's 35 now. That's just what I found interesting.
Yeah.
Like he retired after the second three-peat at 34.
LeBron's 35 now. LeBron didn't take the 18 months off in the middle. And LeBron started 3 years earlier.
Correct.
So LeBron's got a lot more mileage on him.
A lot more mileage.
Now, LeBron doesn't have the killer instinct of quitting in the middle because he was tired and couldn't do it anymore. He has the play 3 years more, don't take the time off in the middle, don't retire again a year earlier. But, doesn't have that hunger. I think the problem with LeBron having more titles if it wasn't for the lack of hunger and drive, and commitment to the game, will to win,
So
killer instinct.
So this is important to know, too. LeBron made his first NBA Finals at age 23.
Right.
Jordan made his first NBA Finals at age 27. So I mean, it's apples to oranges in a way because two completely different, not only players but how their teams were put together and systems.
Also, LeBron is way more Scottie Pippen than he's Michael Jordan.
100%.
He's way more Magic Johnson than he is Michael Jordan.
100%.
Now, he passed Jordan in scoring on 1,500 less shots. But, again, his goal isn't to lead the league in scoring.
Yeah.
That was Kevin Durant's goal for a while. He wanted to lead the league in scoring, and then he wanted to win championships. LeBron James has never been committed to leading the league in scoring. And this isn't a LeBron James podcast. We're just trying to put it in perspective because it seems like even the Jordan people, they immediately take, like, everybody that watches this that is like a Jordan stan takes to the internet and brings up LeBron. It's like, bro, like what? Like, this is some sort of insecurity on your behalf.
Yeah.
LeBron could have never handled the Bill Laimbeer Pistons.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, we got to talk about the Isaiah, the walking off, the Dream Team thing I sent you, and just Isaiah in general. Do you feel bad for Isaiah the way that this all played out? Because I don't feel fucking bad for Isaiah at all. Obviously, he went on to ruin the Knicks, so Isaiah can go fuck himself. But there's this, I mean, Jordan certainly has.
Well, look, I agree. Here's what I agree with. I agree with what Michael Jordan said. You still lose in class. You lose a series, you shake hands.
Now, Isaiah said the Celtics didn't shake their hands and blah, blah, blah.
Big deal.
Okay. So,
But hold on. But I have something. That's my first point. Is that I agree with what Michael Jordan said. You lose with class, you shake hands.
he still He basically hates Isaiah to this day.
But that's my second point. Get over it, Michael. He was young. This was 30 plus years ago. Just get over it.
So now Isaiah, I sent you the clip. Isaiah basically saying that when all is said and done, and 30 years later, that now that there's enough people out there, now we have Michael on tape watching Isaiah saying, doesn't mean he's not an asshole, like blah, blah, blah. And there's a book, there's a Dream Team book written by a Sports Illustrated writer that basically says Jordan wasn't going to, if Isaiah was on the Dream Team, Jordan wasn't going to play. And Pippen wasn't going to play. Okay? Because fuck Isaiah. This is 2 years removed from that situation. We're 30 years removed, and Michael Jordan still is pissed off about it. So obviously 2 years later, he's going to be furious about it, right?
Yeah.
So the Dream Team, Chuck Daly coaches the Dream Team, by the way, which is amazing.
Yeah.
The Dream Team has to pick. We can have Isaiah, or we can have Jordan and Pippen. That's a no-brainer. Obviously, we're doing this Dream Team thing. This is a big old basketball circle. Like, this is a huge deal.
Sure.
There was never a chance that they were going to pick Isaiah over Jordan and Pippen. Fully qualified to be on that team. Deserves to be on that team. Like, when you look at it, obviously Magic, Bird, Michael, Scotty. After that, it gets pretty tight to, like, not have
Does it?
Isaiah. You're going to have big men, so you're going to have Patrick Ewing, you're going to have Dennis Rodman, but, like, Isaiah's more qualified.
Not Dennis Rodman. You have Chuck.
David Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
Ewing, David Robinson. But I'm saying you've got Chuck Daly.
No, I'm saying Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley, yeah. You're going to have bigs, but, like, they had John Stockton on that team. You know? At the time, John Stockton isn't doing an NBA at the point guard position what Isaiah Thomas is. You've got Chris Mullin. You've got, like, there's other guys on this team. Like, Isaiah is qualified to be on the 92 Dream Team. No doubt about it. And everybody has said that over the years. And the reason he's not on there is because of.
You want to hear something crazy though about Isaiah Thomas? You know he never averaged 20 points a game?
Yeah.
No, I'm wrong in that. Sorry. I thought I saw that somewhere.
Even if he didn't, though, but, like, that wasn't his.
That's
They're a slow it down. They're the bad boys Pistons.
I'm wrong on that. He averaged 20 points a game a lot.
Okay. He's also the best player on that Pistons team, no doubt about it. He wins a Finals MVP.
Sure.
Right? And then I think Dumars maybe got the other one. I think he's a one-time Finals MVP. But he's certainly the leader of that Pistons team and their best player.
Yeah.
He's qualified to be on it. But here's my problem with it. And, again, I'm a New York Knicks fan. So fuck Isaiah Thomas to death. He's a sexual harasser.
All right.
He ruins the CBA. He ruins the New York Knicks. He ruins the Toronto Raptors. He's fuck Isaiah Thomas to death. Okay? But if Scotty and Michael have this beef that if you're on the Bad Boys Pistons,
I know what you're doing.
and you're going to walk off the court and you're not going to shake our hands, I don't want Bill Laimbeer anywhere near my documentary. I don't want Isaiah Thomas on the Dream Team or I walk. Then you're a huge, gaping hypocrite
Yeah.
to welcome Dennis Rodman onto the 95 Bulls.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah, you got a point.
When more than anybody but maybe Laimbeer and Mahorn, he's doing the dirty work.
I mean, he tried to kill Pippen.
Yeah. So, by the way, if Michael Jordan, I have more respect for Michael Jordan if he consistently never breaks for 30 years. Fuck every single member of the Bad Boys Pistons. They can all fucking die. I won't play on an Olympic team with them. I won't go to dinner with them. I won't golf with them. If Joe Dumars is there, I'll blow up the fucking restaurant. I'm not fucking with the Bad Boys Pistons. But then the second Horace Grant leaves, you got Dennis Rodman on the horn, and you're like, Worm, man, you don't even have to practice. You can vacation during the season. Just come on the Bulls, bro.
Yeah. No, it's true. It is interesting that there's such this beef with the Bad Boys Pistons.
Where Michael Jordan is cursing Isaiah Thomas 30 years later.
But they had no problem accepting Rodman. who blatantly shoved Pippen in the back, which could have seriously injured him.
Now, I like Dennis Rodman as a person. Seems like a great guy. Isaiah Thomas can fuck himself till he dies again. But let's just agree, Michael Jordan is sort of on the record as, I don't mess with the bad boys Pistons, except for Dennis Rodman, because we didn't lose Paxson, we didn't lose Hodges, we didn't lose Kerr. We lost our leading rebounder and lost to him in the playoffs. So I will take any bad boys Pistons who are still out there that can dominate the boards.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I feel you. You're right. I agree.
I lived 90s basketball. It consumed my life. I was watching the Lakers Bulls highlights from that. Jimmy, I knew exactly where I was. It was at a Chinese restaurant in Goldens Bridge, New York, eating dinner with my family. And I was sitting out at the bar drinking Shirley Temples. I'm an 11-year-old at a bar, and they're like, why are you in the bar? I'm like, I got to watch this basketball game. I lived – when they played the Beastie Boys during the Dennis Rodman 90s Bulls highlights, I almost murdered myself. I've never been more triggered than taking diehard Knicks fans and putting their music over 90s Bulls highlights. It's the most I've ever been triggered in the history of the world.
Would they play Maestro?
Yeah. Over Dennis Rodman highlights. I was shaking.
Yeah.
I was full Karen.
It's a good song though.
Yeah, it's great.
Is that check your head?
It's yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It was I live 90s basketball. So when I watch this stuff, I come here to the Dirty Sports Podcast to fill in some of the blanks for everybody because it consumed me.
I will say, but God, that second run Bulls team, man, they were so much fun to watch.
The second run Bulls team.
Just again with the personalities. When you add Dennis Rodman to the mix, he's just.
Hey, the first run wasn't bad either. They were like it was like a more athletic Scotty and Michael. It was. Again, Horace Grant underrated. They were all fun, and don't forget the NBA in the '90s was also a debacle. The overexpansion, the watering down of the league. That's like all stuff that's probably not going to be covered in like the Bulls dominated decade when basketball was truly at its worst. Like the '80s was more competitive.
Sure.
And the 90s, the Bulls dominate, but like we're introducing the Vancouver Grizzlies and the Raptors, and the expansion just happens, and no one's got. Again, this is the thing that we say: every team had one star, and that was like kind of by plan, you know. Every team's got the guy that's going to go on their poster. The Bulls had two. Bulls arguably had guys like Horace Grant and Dennis Rodman, who were these third Kevin Love-ish type of stars. And that's why they dominate for a decade.
I want to see more Tony Kukoc.
I saw a great tweet. Somebody goes, if you think Jordan and Pippen put the clamps on Tony Kukoc with the Dream Team, how about what they did to him in this documentary? You just keep seeing Tony Kukoc is like the kid in 3 Men and a Baby that appears in the background, the ghost in the background of 3 Men and a Baby. Is Tony Kukoc alive?
I mean, Tony Kukoc was such an important part of that second three-peat. How are they not mentioning him? I believe he was Sixth Man of the Year.
Have they even said Tony Kukoc in the documentary yet?
That's a great question.
You know there's the whole beef, though.
Of course. Going back to Spain and Barcelona in the Olympics.
Yeah. And going back to them courting him, and they were like, we don't fucking need this guy. And then we're going to show you how much we don't need this guy. And then there's
The Last Shot with Pippen and Kukoc.
Jordan Rules. The book has, which if you have never read, there's a whole thing in the Jordan. Like, the Tony Kukoc thing is like long. They haven't even mentioned Tony Kukoc's name in the documentary.
So this is what Tony Kukoc was.
Tony, I can tell you one thing. They have definitely not had. I mean, is Tony Kukoc going to be interviewed in this documentary?
I just don't get it. Where is he?
They've got the assistant coach from Michael Jordan's high school basketball team. Is Tony Kukoc going to get the Leroy Smith treatment?
Tony Kukoc was the Lamar Odom back in his day.
Yes.
Is that the comp?
I mean, even with the lefty and everything.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Just
coming off the Lakers bench, going to put in 12, 13 points a game, get your rebounds, play some defense. The fact that they're ignoring Kukoc. Kukoc was the guy who the Bulls signed after Jordan went to play baseball.
I mean, they have 3 minutes on Michael Jordan calling Scott Burrell an alcoholic. They haven't mentioned Tony Kukoc's name once.
The disrespect. How have they not mentioned Tony Kukoc?
There's more. There's been more about the Sniff brothers in 4 episodes of a documentary about the '90s Bulls than Tony Kukoc. They're 6th man for 3 championships.
Yeah. A great 6th man, too.
There are some things Michael Jordan will not let die. Isaiah Thomas, the fictional guy who made the high school basketball team over him, and the presence of Tony Kukoc on the '90s Bulls.
Come on, man. You want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
So, the Bulls had just won the three-peat, and obviously we don't have NBA in Cincinnati, and they would do exhibition games. You're gonna love this. The exhibition game, it was all hyped up in October before the NBA.
Cincinnati Civic Arena or some nonsense like that, right?
Downtown at the old Riverfront Coliseum.
Okay.
It was Sonics Bulls, and I was stoked. I had won some contest, and I had, I think, maybe 2 tickets. So you're all excited as a kid. You're gonna see Michael Jordan. You're gonna see Scottie Pippen. You're gonna see Gary Payton. You're gonna see Sean Kemp.
None of them show.
Dude, you'll love this. You'll love this. My uncle. So at least I had 1 tickets. My uncle. this, and by the way, that the place still exists. I don't even know what it's called anymore. Is it U.S. Bank Arena? I don't even know what it's called, but it still exists. It's right next to the Red Stadium. They just basically need to redo it. My uncle gets tickets for his family. I bet you he drops. Who knows? They show up. This place is so old. There's two of the actual seats are missing at their seat. The actual seat portion.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. Jordan retires. No Jordan. Pippen, I'm hurt. Not playing. Gary Payton, not playing. Sean Kemp, not playing. And this is the silver lining. You know who they advertised? The new star for the Bulls, Tony Kukoc.
Yeah.
That's who I got to see, Tony Kukoc.
And was it everything you dreamed it would be?
That's why I had to bring him up. Where's Kukoc?
Yeah.
I got to see him live.
Yeah, it's I mean, we're 4 episodes of 10 episodes deep. I had sent you something that has since disappeared. I had sent you 8 watermarked episodes in a Google Drive folder that the person who shared it with me has since been removed.
Oh, man.
But supposedly episodes 9 and 10 are so wild that they weren't even included in my secret stash.
Yeah, so we had a secret stash to all everyone but 2.
Yeah. So there's a lot more to come, but I am interested to see Horace Grant, how they handle Horace, how they handle Tony, how they handle, the first retirement and the gambling thing, Michael's father's death, and blah, 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 a lot of things. I need Vegas odds on who makes an appearance first, Tony or Leroy Smith. We have any good comments in there, Andy? People are like, you are talking way too much about this documentary.
No, nothing crazy. It's a good documentary, though, man.
Yeah.
Especially for us who grew up with this stuff.
And, as much as I was triggered by that Beastie Boys, they're doing a fantastic job of timing the music along with what they're showing you.
Bro, I've been jamming since last week. During my runs, I've been rocking LL Cool J. I'm bad.
I knew you would. I was going to say the LL Cool J song they showed during the Bulls-Celtics series.
I mean, I will say Rodman is just like, God, that dude. He's like, I ran last night. I felt good.
It's hard to like Rodman more than you already did. Then he cracks a cold Miller Lite and gets on his motorcycle. I'm like, I wish I could wrap my arms around him as he rides away.
You know why I love Rodman? Because he could go on a bender like they show and still just bring it at practice, bring it at games.
I mean, he joked that he was drinking kamikazes in the weight room.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
There's also there's stories that was like Rodman's deal too. Is like he's not like a hard like he likes like the girly stuff, but he'll drink like 40 kamikaze shots. It's basically just vodka and lime juice. Now you had a thing on the Jordan, the Bulls, the workout. You wanted to get.
Well, I just thought it was funny. I noticed, again, not to keep harping on it, but everybody went, "Oh, the '90s, the '90s." These dudes didn't even weight train. I mean that was a piece in the documentary which made me laugh. I put a note down on it. They're saying Michael Jordan didn't start weight training till after he lost to the Pistons for the third straight year.
Which is like, okay, whatever, I guess. But
again, I want to put it in comparison of like how tough they were in the 90s. Guys, they didn't even weight train.
And I've got my whole other conspiracy theory. There's this clip of Michael Jordan doing the pull-down bar. I mean, I've seen it 1,000 times in my life.
I have too.
The cutoff T-shirt underneath the Bulls practice penny, the black practice penny with Bulls in red. I think he's wearing red shorts. I've seen that. This is the only clip we have of Michael Jordan working out. I know he went into the gym and he turned the Bulls into weight. We have one clip in 35 years of Michael Jordan. He's the one thing on him doing the pull. It's the one clip I've seen for you. Anytime you want to show me Michael Jordan working out, there's one clip of it.
It's the same thing. Again, in a way it's stupid.
It was in the Gatorade commercial. It was in the McDonald's commercial.
Well, here's the good thing. They are going to address all that. Here's what's good about the documentary. It's a pro Jordan one, but it also is highlighting things that have been said on this show for years. The next few episodes are going to highlight how Jordan was the first ever
marketing campaign.
They're going to highlight
athlete.
it. So it's funny because it's a pro Jordan documentary, but it's also showing how brainwashed we all were because of the marketing and the whole push for Michael Jordan. Because, guys, you have to remember, and they say this in the documentary, there was basically Magic and Bird, it's known, saved the NBA.
Yeah. They were playing games on tape delay.
They were
playing NBA Finals games on tape delay.
Larry Bird and Magic Johnson saved
from their because college sports then were even bigger than pro sports. They've got a rivalry in college. They get the Indiana State, Michigan State. They're the face of the NBA. They both go to good teams straight out of college, even being 1-2.
Yeah, so they saved the NBA. So when those guys are towards their tail end, the NBA's looking around saying, who's our next guy? And obviously Jordan was because he was the best player in the world. But the point is, there's so many stars now. Like, there were stars back then. But, I mean, my point is you got guys like Chris Paul's. I was thinking about this today. Chris Paul, they're doing a whole new round of State Farm commercials with Carlton from Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
And they're actually kind of funny. I actually kind of like them, right?
The new Chris Paul.
The new Chris Paul.
Yeah. But
this is my point. Chris Paul is like, at this point, as far as stardom, you're like, oh, he plays in the Thunder. He's towards the tail end of his career. Back in our day, Jordan did all those commercials.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
And that was because
a guy like Chris Paul back then is not doing commercials.
That's because the only players you knew were the guys that were competing in basically the playoffs and the occasional NBA on NBC were the only national games. You're not getting 3 games a week on ESPN and TNT.
Exactly.
You're not getting the NBA package.
No.
You're not getting any sort of streaming anything. You're not getting highlights on the social media all day. There's now, and this is obviously LeBron James is proof of it. I mean, guys, basically, like you said, across the league, Kevin Durant in Oklahoma and Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma. You can be a star, and it used to mean something to be in a big market. I mean, you're looking at Celtics, Lakers, Bulls, Knicks. Like these are the guys that are pumped up. I mean, even the David Robinsons and the Hakeem Olajuwons who are down in Texas. You never saw There was one David Robinson commercial back in the day. One.
Which one was that?
It's just like it was a David Robinson Nike commercial. It was Miss Robinson's Neighborhood. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Charles Barkley. I remember he used to do the deodorant ones.
Yeah. And Pippen did the deodorant ones. Pippen did Speed Stick and Barkley.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, Barkley's in Philadelphia and then he's in Phoenix and obviously, but he's going to the NBA Finals. It wasn't everybody has a sneaker, you know. In those days, Paul George, the second guy on every team he's ever played for, isn't having the PG sneaker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pippen didn't have his own sneaker.
Yeah.
So, it was Michael Jordan, and that spurned a whole era of then guys, everybody getting their sneaker, and then realizing that didn't work, and then doubling back, and blah blah blah. And
Sure.
now we've kind of refreshed again.
Yeah, it's just. I was thinking about that again because it was Jordan nonstop, and again, the documentary does a good job of highlighting it, and from what I've seen, future episodes will do that. So, well, look, Joe, we've covered it all: The Last Dance, the NFL Draft,
Last Dance,
and that's the episode. Guys, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Dirty Sports, and yeah, thanks for sticking around with us.
At Fix Your Life on Twitter, at Joe Prano on Instagram. Rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Be like Dennis Rodman, drink Miller Lite, and have sex with Madonna. I think that's
And Carmen Electra.
both of them.
Yeah.
And many, many others. I mean, let's all agree he dressed like an idiot, scored almost no points. Pretty sure it was the Miller Lite.
Yeah. I will say, it made me want to go to Vegas last night.
Yeah?
It made me want to go
48
to Vegas.
hours in Vegas?
It made me want to go to Vegas. It really did. I have a feeling I'm going to do a trip when Vegas reopens. I'm inviting Dennis.
You don't
Rodman.
drink. You barely gamble.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'm going to Vegas. All right, guys, that's the episode. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for the support. Have a great week and stay dirty.